This is Jane with Blog Talk Radio. I am having host call in about 3 minutes. So what caused the California fires? 4 disastrous wildfires were still burning across LA and Ventura counties in SoCal on Tuesday. But it's not yet clear what started the fires, as government officials, lawyers, and experts weigh in. This is what they said. Now, first of all, it's already burned over 20,000 acres and displaced over 100,000 people, and it's burned over probably by now 1,100 structures. I have hosts calling in a minute, so I have to refresh myself. The Pacific Palisades fire and Eaton fire broke out January 7th, which was already several days ago, and grew to more than 23,000 and 14,000 acres, respectively, destroying thousands of structures and leading to more than 100,000 evacuations. So my statistics were completely right. Several smaller fires, including the Hearst fire, the Otto fire, and more, are still active as of today, which is a week later, January 14th. They broke out after the Palisades and Eaton fires. So Pacific Palisade, I lived in Cali about a third of my life. Great. The Pacific Palisades, it's nestled in. I'm waiting for callers, I have to check. It's nestled in behind, kind of like going towards the ocean, but behind Beverly Hills, between Beverly Hills and Malibu. And it's an area that most everyday drivers don't drive through, because if you're going down the Sunset Strip, like straight to the beach, from Sunset Strip all the way to the PCH, there's a little beach right there once you get to that intersection, and you can either go left towards Santa Monica or right towards Malibu. Here's Suzette. Good evening.
Good evening.
So tonight I'm going to do a little things differently. I'm assuming Mr. Bianchi will call in, and hopefully Don. Okay, Don's calling in. 1 second. Just a second. Don? Don?
Yeah, get me out.
Yeah, it's you and Suzette so far. And I didn't know if you were calling in because neither you or your wife acknowledged my text all day.
Okay.
So there's a new rule for tonight. If your guys' call drops and all of a sudden you can't hear me talking, then just call back in. I'm not going to interrupt the show every 35 seconds to let somebody in. I'm just going to notice that you're gone for a while, and then if I have a little break or something, I'll either call you, but just call me. So tonight's topic is, was the California wildfires started by humans? Was it made worse by Gavin Newsom? And also later in the show, we're going to discuss Trump's inauguration. So the Democratic haters say it's Gavin Newsom's fault. Some of the news channels said that the Pacific Palisades water reservoir was offline when the fires started, so they couldn't somehow access the water. And that's why Canada had to come in with their water planes. But somebody's phone is crackling. Somebody had to blame Gavin Newsom because they said that he reduced the amount of packages or financial incentives for Southern California fires. So I would like to hear your guys' opinion.
Go ahead, Don.
Yeah, well, you lived there, Suzette. I'm surprised you weren't affected.
Well, she lives 50 miles from downtown LA.
But one of the fires, I believe, was around the Palm Springs area or something like that. But there are 9 separate fires, and essentially, there could have been many, many reasons for them. Right now,
well, there was 60 to 100-mile-an-hour winds.
and that's perfect for arsonists. So there were 1 or 2 or 3 of those that were arson. They already have 1 suspect in custody, but the state is suing the PG&E again because they're saying that one of those fires, and I don't know, I'm trying to find out the information. One of those fires was set by a cord possibly being blown off or something like that. So PG&E might be susceptible to another suit because they are negligent.
And just for everybody's advice, PG&E is Pacific Gas and Electric. Now, I do know some main causes of the fire I didn't mention. Last year it rained a lot and it grew a lot of vegetation and growth. And this year it didn't rain a lot. So all that huge amounts of vegetation in the hills were dry, which made the fires more bulky and enormous. And also, I saw an interview by a fireman being interviewed, and he blamed it almost entirely on wind. He said when it's going 60 to 100 miles an hour, it's almost impossible to stop it. So, and then, and Trump did say that he would not, he didn't so much say that he would withhold money, but he said he'd only help the areas in California that voted for him, which is completely ridiculous. You can't cherry pick who you're going to help in national disasters. And well, luckily Biden's still in charge, so he can get FEMA in motion.
He was just kidding when he said that. But as far as fires, where they started, when they started, these smart meters are not smart. They use lithium batteries. They are known to catch fire when they reach a certain temperature. Like, let's say regular temperature for a fire that was electrical fire is a certain degrees. It will be amplified because of the lithium, up to 6,000 degrees. And so these houses, businesses, and so forth are burning down to the ground because of the intense heat. And everything catches on fire around it. I mean, that just really takes it down to the ground. But those aren't solely to blame. The PG&E with the Woolsey fires, it was one of their lines had gone down and basically caught the forest on fire and went crazy there.
Was that a couple of years ago, the Woolsey fire?
What's that?
Was that Woolsey fire a few years ago, or the one that's right now?
That was yes. It was 2 years ago, and then it's on fire again this year. But they're saying that it's arsonists that are doing it this time around. I don't know. I can't say for sure. But they're saying they are responsible for starting these fires in random places. But as far as the reservoir goes, reservoir was being worked on, and so that's why there was no water in there. But the fire chief should have known that she could not withdraw water from an inoperable reservoir. But apparently she was unaware that it did not have any water in it.
That's ridiculous.
I know, she should have been aware. But Gavin Newsom had made a statement saying that, we need answers, that the water pressure, he wants to know why the water pressure and power loss and all that had gone on at the San Ynez Reservoir. And he calls it deeply troubling. And it's like, well, it's not that troubling if you are in touch and communication with the people working over there at the reservoir to know why it was inoperable, and of course why there was no pressure because there was no water. But yeah, so it doesn't even make sense that he wants to call an investigation into it. It's like, well, what investigation? It was being worked on. You don't have water in an inoperable reservoir, and why did anybody know that it was inoperable? That doesn't make any sense. But nevertheless,
there is a Hollywood reservoir up by the Hollywood Lake, like up by Gower, Gower Street. There's a reservoir around there in the Hollywood Hills.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think that's a tank, isn't it?
Well,
Yeah.
it's kind of like a lake, but it's also, I think, a tank.
Well, the bottom line is that the water pressure was down and off on many of the
Water resources.
The hydrants, and the mayor had.
She was out of town. The mayor was out of town.
Yeah, but she cut. I guess a couple months back, she had cut $170 million from the fire department. And
I knew somebody did. I thought it was the state of California.
So that's what I'm trying to get at. Is I wonder what the connection was between the 170 and the mayor and Gavin. I don't know if he knew about it or how much he knew about it, or if he authorized it, or would have given a nay vote on whether it should have been cut. But the police, the fire chief, and the mayor, what's her name? What's mayor?
I just know she's a female, and they interviewed her, and she didn't say anything. She just stood there like a dork.
Yeah, well, she and the fire chief got in a real shouting match, and the fire chief, she fired her right there. And
that's great.
That's questionable right now too. No, this is after the fires are going, and the fire chief publicly admonished the mayor about cutting that $170 million, and then they went into a meeting, and I guess they said all hell broke loose. And the fire chief, they came out of the meeting, and fire chief had been fired. Two ladies. So it's crazy what's going on down there, but there could be a modicum of hate in there where I guess Disney buildings and things like that were might have been part of the targets, but I'm not sure if that, what the reasons were. But those areas that were burned, I lived through probably about a mile away from where the Altadena fire started. And so I used to live in Pasadena.
Don, Altadena was really bad too. It burned a lot in Altadena.
Well, think of all the.
Talking about as far as this particular areas that have been burnt this time around, or that are burning, having to do with the Olympics and what developers or the state wants to put in its place. And so because these structures were burnt to the ground, these homes, there isn't anything that a developer has to pay as far as fair market value, because the land is basically,
So they might build the Olympic stuff there in the Palisades?
Yes. That's what they're talking about. It's Proposition C40.
I have a question for you guys. Okay, so you know how there's a set amount of, like they try to make a set amount of money for FEMA, but then if there's like, for example, there was Hurricane Milton this year. There was another one that preceded that hit North Carolina. And even though the calendar year is turning now to 2025, and it already has, but there's only so much money FEMA has. And being the fact that Palisades, it burned several multi-million-dollar homes. And even if their fire insurance is canceled, I hate to say it, but the rich people who have investments and extra money, I don't know how they're going to rebuild they're probably not going to rebuild there. But what I'm saying is, whose responsibility and how much percent does FEMA have to pay to help these people?
Well, they're getting, from what I understand, $700 a piece.
Yeah,
But as far as rebuilding, no. These people still have to pay mortgages. They still have to pay property taxes and still find a place to either live or rent, you know. And I'm sure they have other homes they could move to in other states or whatever.
Well, I would never pay a mortgage on a burned house.
they've got insurance.
They canceled a lot of the fire insurance, it was said.
Yeah.
That's not in Los Angeles. They cancel a lot in the rurals and the forest areas.
In the Palisades, they canceled their insurance, and it was, now listen, this is the key part, because people are missing this part. Yes, insurance companies, if you have a mortgage, they have to insure you. But their loophole is, if that insurance company leaves the state, they no longer have to insure you. AIG left the state, so anybody who had AIG fire insurance no longer has fire insurance. And they started doing this to the people that live in those areas that happen to be under fire right now.
Did they do it in the last 5 days, or did they do it in the last year?
Well, they did it, I guess, within the last 4 months. So that's why there's a lot of question as to conspiracy theories coming out as to who knew what, you know, going on. That they would bail out 4 months before this happened. So take it for what you will. As far as I'm just throwing that out there because of the sequence and time that the events had taken place. I'm not saying what's going on.
The other thing is California's never seen a fire disaster this bad in the heart of a city. Like, yes, we had that bad San Diego fire, and we had that other fire over that Cajon Pass going towards Victorville, but it's never covered this many people and this much property.
You're so right, Jane. That Highland area, Highland was under, and they had a fire going on there, but within 24 hours it was contained. And you know, Highland is on its way up to Victorville, and so that corridor is nothing but wind. And so, if anything was going to get out of hand, you know, fire-wise, it would have been there, but they had it contained, you know, within 24 hours.
So why do you say, Suzette, the conspiracy theory includes 9 separate fires?
She didn't say it did necessarily. She said AIG pulled out 4 months before the fires.
Yeah.
AIG was having problems with Florida and everybody else, though.
Right.
You know.
Sure. And there were a couple other insurance companies too, but like you were saying, not all of those homes didn't have insurance, because there were homes that did have insurance. But so I don't know. I haven't delved into it to find out, you know, why exactly they left California. I'm under, I don't know, under the assumption, or I guess information-wise in the news, it says that they had bailed out because these were high-risk areas and they were losing a lot of money. And so that doesn't make sense to me, because it wasn't the last Woolsey fire or whatever that they had was, what did they say, 2 years ago, you know, and then we haven't had anything, and now all of a sudden we have this big one. So how do they assess their risk and damage policies? So I don't know. I wish I could give you a better answer, but I don't know.
Well, all I know is that Gavin Newsom is responsible, and all the other predecessors with the cheatgrass problems. I live here in northern Nevada, and I used to go to I go to Northern California all the time. And so we see the cheatgrass, and I knew that Paradise, for instance, I've said this many times.
Yeah.
I knew that Paradise was because I worked in forestry.
Are you talking about Paradise, California?
Yeah.
Yeah, my pastor's home burned in that fire.
Yeah, that fire was a disaster waiting to happen, because it was a horseshoe in the bottom of the hill that
and the whole city, the entire city burned.
The entire city. And so, and I used to go through there at night. It had only one service station, one grocery store. That's it. But I knew that something bad was going to happen to that place.
They were a fire waiting to happen.
If you look at the Malibu Hills, behind where.
Right. Mulholland Drive, all up in there.
No, you know the whole. Okay. You know the whole strip of land where people have beach houses in Malibu on the PCH?
They're gone.
They're gone. And see, you look up in the Malibu Hills around there, those mountains are effing ugly. They're like just little, they're little scorch balls of, before the fire, they're just like rough and tumble scrub brush on the side of a mountain. It's not a pretty part of LA. And and Millicent Hearst, who married William Randolph Hearst, when he moved her from New York to San Simeon, California, she said, this place, she said, California is not appealing. It's uninhabitable for man. And I wish you would have never brought me here.
Well, I mean, it's turning out to be that way because I remember when I was a kid, I used to go to California once every 2-3 years, and I saw the beauty of it, and then it was glamorous. Yes, it never really bothered me, but it was glamorous, and now it is just, it has been bogged down almost like a Sodom and Gomorrah, where these types of things are its fate. The way that Nestle's and Coca-Cola have controlled and dominated the water, everything. This place it's as corrupt a state.
Now there were reports about Newsom sending the fire station or firefighters resources, their equipment, their firemen wear, all that type of stuff to Ukraine. And
Are you kidding? Are you kidding?
No, I don't.
We don't know.
I'll see if I can find it.
So in other words, Newsom loaned fire equipment to the Ukraine that the California firefighters could have used. Oh, he gave it?
Yeah,
and it was a lot.
Well, it ain't that sweet.
And then the budget was cut on the fire stations as well, so they couldn't really replenish any of that stuff that he took from them and gave it away.
So, like when I was in a California history class in at not Lake Superior College, but in Los Angeles City College, because I took extra classes after I got my master's. So they said, okay, you know how California has a water shortage? So they drained Owens Lake just north of Santa Clarita, and they made some kind of reservoir so that they could pass the water all the way down to LA and a couple other parts of the city. And then they used that Owens Lake area as a mass water collector thing. And then I remember one year when I was up by Frisco, because my sister lived there, we went there every year. One year it was so dry that this dam up by Frisco, in the central Joaquin Valley, was completely empty. They had no water reserve at all. So there's been times where California's been very lean, and there's times when the water's overflowing.
And I've been there all that time. I've living here for 34 years. You gotta get to see all these different changes in climate. I've seen when you mentioned
Owens Lake.
That was one of the stunners of all time.
They made a man-made lake, didn't they?
Yeah, and Owens Lake is big. It's not a small lake. It's not a big lake, but it's not a small lake. And when it was drained, I was like, oh my goodness. It was a surreal scene to go down 395 and look at a dry, long lake bed. So that was something. But I've seen also a few times Modesto underwater. The whole area, Sacramento, the West Sacramento side is underwater. All these places are actually lakes. They're dry lakes that are built on.
Well, even the even about 50% of the Salton Sea dried up down by Mexico.
Yep, sure did. But it's all replenished now, except for Lake Mead. Lake Mead had dropped so far that it was.
That's in Vegas.
Lake Mead is back up to par because we had not so long ago record rain, and so that's what replenished Lake Mead and a bunch of other places. The reservoirs.
Not completely. And then it raised the level, I think, like 8%, but from its high, but its general height, it's still quite a bit low.
Isn't Lake Mead in Vegas?
Yes.
Yes.
But
we draw water from there, yeah.
Water supply not only for us, but for Phoenix. Phoenix takes Lake Mead and Colorado River water to feed Phoenix and all the way down Tucson and those places. So. And
you would think that Arizona, because Arizona people go there because it's dry weather, dry air. It's better for them for their breathing and stuff. And Arizona is dry as heck. They would be having like these record fires and so on and so forth. But I can't remember last time I heard that there was a big fire in Arizona. But yeah, here in California, where we actually.
We only have two places that have forests.
Yeah, but it's all tumbleweeds and dry brush.
Yeah, that can be tapped down pretty quickly.
And areas of the desert over there in Arizona, if we're talking Grand Canyon area and stuff that can't really be reached, it would just go up in smoke.
Yeah,
we don't hear about that.
No, but that's because I don't know why. I mean, those fires probably are contained within 1,000 acres. I'm not sure. I haven't really heard about the phenomenon of desert.
But we sold our water rights here, like you said. Coca-Cola and Nestle were the first. And that was a shocker. Nobody blinked over here about it. I was like, what?
Nope.
Hello, they're selling our water rights. They're selling our air rights. Everything else.
Everything. Because now, when you talk about airwaves, they're being sold. Billions of dollars a second on air. On airwaves. And it's ridiculous. But I just saw one of the TV shows was talking about how the internet has, that might be jumping from something to another, but it's contaminating our kids' brains and all of our.
Oh yeah.
Messing
sure.
All up.
You have frequency waves going through the phone. You got your kid playing with the phone or talking on the phone, and that's affecting their brains. You don't think it would? I mean, come on. It's radiation.
Yeah, people don't understand that 5G is actually a danger. And it's got more radio waves than the normal human body can take over time.
Yep, 5G stands for fifth generation, so they've been working on it for a while.
So I have something interesting to tell you guys.
Okay.
I'm in the YouTube studio, and I was able to bring a map up of all the California reservoirs. So it's showing. See, every time I switch screens in YouTube studio, you guys get cut off. So I had to do it fast. So you maybe got cut off for maybe 30 seconds. But there's the Morris Reservoir, the San Dimas Reservoir, which is way in eastern LA, and the Hollywood Reservoir. Those are the only three reservoirs they show in LA. Then up going towards San Francisco, There's there's 8 reservoirs. The Boca Reservoir, probably that's near Sacramento. There's at least
What's the name of it?
Boca, B-O-C-A.
That's by us.
Yeah, it's by Don. So between like Monterey and Nevada, not where Don lives in Reno, there's 12 reservoirs in the San Joaquin Valley. And there's one reservoir by Frisco called the Briones. And then there's one way up by Redwood called the Keswick Reservoir. So it's kind of weird, like San Luis Obispo has one too. Why is there like 15 reservoirs in Northern California and only 3 in LA, which is over 75% of the state population?
Because the water that LA gets, it comes from the north. That's in contract, that all the water that LA gets, there's a part of the contract, I believe, that was up to 70% or something of all the water that that would be.
Go ahead, sorry.
I'm sure Suzette knows about this too. Like a lot of the
had it on the ballot several times, and people vote for it, which is to build more water storage areas, more reservoirs or whatever, because when we have the rains, they are substantial and they could, catch water, so that we have, maybe not a whole lot more, but at least some for these fire seasons that we have. And no, we haven't seen a new one built, and yet people vote for it. Yes, they take the money for it, from taxes or whatever, these extra little pennies that they say on the dollar, but it's worth saving lives for, blah, 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 during fire season, yada, yada. And we're not seeing anything built. And it's pissing a lot of people off, because if you're going to tax us for it, you're going to take money from us for this specific thing, and then nothing's being done, not even plans, except for their environmental investigations as to where they could put these reservoirs at, or these water tanks or whatever to catch water. So we have to wait until they have their investigations as to, where it won't do so much damage to our environment and yada, yada. But this has been going on for like 10 plus years, kid you not.
And they should have already done it, right?
Yes, it should be done. It doesn't take that long to do, but they, for whatever reason, it's still not done. And like I said, this has been 10 plus years that we've been voting on this. And so this time around, when they asked for money for that, I didn't vote. I voted no. because
they
I'm
never
not going to give you any more money.
Yeah.
Forget you.
Okay, I have a question. I have 3 more questions for you guys, and I kind of like it with just 3 of us, because when there's 5 hosts, it gets too chaotic. I have 3 questions. So let's say they go ahead and they build the Olympic stadiums around the Palisades. Now, number 1 question. Most of the people it affected were the wealthiest of the wealthiest. So what percent of all these people, and not all people, they weren't all celebrities, but what percent of the fire victims do you guys think will move out of state? Number 2, where do you think these wealthy and celebrity people would go in the LA metro area? Would they be willing to buy a house in a poorer neighborhood? Like, there's really some pretty parts of Pasadena. There's nice parts like in Brentwood that also had a fire. Would they be willing to like go into a more middle class neighborhood that's kind of upscale, but not really? I mean, not like the wealthiest of wealthiest. And thirdly, how can this benefit or hurt the state of California revenue as a whole? Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay.
So the first question was dealing with the elites or rich people in the Palisades area, and where they would go. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. I don't think that they will come back or rebuild in California. I don't, and I say that because I think these fires actually gave them an out to get out of California, because they are seeing how things are run, are really run. So if they were woke celebrities, then maybe they had their eyes opened, and others who were already woke, they're like, well, this was the final straw. I was able to hang on for so long, but you know what? I don't need it. I don't need this. I have a home over in Texas. I have a home over Florida or wherever else. So I have nothing to pack. So I'm just going to get on a plane and go. And so the government, by doing or being incompetent, when it most counted, it's going to cost them now in revenue. As far as property taxes or any type of taxes from these people anymore. I take it back as far as property tax because they'll probably still have to pay that, being that the house.
Well, that's
it still exists in a way on paper anyway. But yeah, so their money is gone, which is going to hurt. Not a whole lot, but it's going to make it's going to impact some. But the new developments that'll be put in place for the Olympics or these stack and pack homes, 15-minute cities that they want to build around there as well. I don't think that they are going to gain much revenue from that. I don't know. Really, it's hard to tell because of the people in LA. There's all kinds of people. There are ones that are on board with this thing, with the 15-minute cities. And so they'll probably gravitate to them. I don't know. That part is hard to say.
There was a mother with 3 kids in her Palisades home. They lived off the land, their whole garden. She had employees. They ate all their food they made, like they grew.
Self-sufficient, yeah.
And then also I forgot to add that there was a Jewish synagogue that burned. There were several schools that burned. And like on one block, a man's house survived and nobody else's did. So he's still going to need services in the community. And so is Tom Hanks, who's his mansion survived, but nobody else.
Oh. Well, I think those that can't afford to leave will find means somehow to find housing, hopefully. But the ones that can afford to leave, they're going to be gone.
I was going to offer housing to somebody, but I was going to be specific and have it be an agent for the writer industry so they can promote my work.
Oh, well, that's smart.
But you didn't do it.
I might do it still, but I have a Jamaican roommate right now.
Oh, okay.
I might still do it. If they're willing to sleep on an airbed in the living room, just temporarily.
Is it a he or she?
The Jamaican living with me now is a he. And trust me, he's not a boyfriend, Don. He's my female friend's boyfriend.
Female friend's boyfriend.
It's my former coworker's boyfriend. Coworkers.
He's staying with you, and why isn't he staying with her? Anyway.
None of your beeswax.
What?
None of your beeswax.
That's what I said. The fires are devastating, and California, Los Angeles will never be the same. I don't think that, those people, that was an interesting scenario you just painted there, Suzette, about those people having an out because California was losing 70,000 people a year anyway. And that was a turnaround from everything else because California has been one of the fastest growing states. And now it's getting rid of people and taxes, and their policies are forcing people out of the state. They can't live there anymore. It's too expensive, and it's also it's kind of a socially aberrant kind of character.
We should ask Suzette if she was done answering the questions.
I didn't know she was.
That's why I said, what do you think, Don?
Don, what do you... First of all, I wanted to mention that people are leaving Vegas in record numbers now because they're tired of only hospitality jobs.
Right.
The environment's not all that. They have. It's not that they have a lack of water, but they have a lack of quality water. And so we're not talking about Vegas, but the same questions I asked you, is that do you have a spin on it?
Yeah, I mean, my spin is that there is a segment of society that wants to see I don't know how to there are a lot of people who don't like the Semitic culture, and there are a lot of
You mean the Jews?
yes.
I wouldn't say that they don't like them. They might envy them.
No, there are segments that don't like them, and there's a person coming into office who has some of those general past history tendencies.
Well, oh God.
And so I don't know if there is a hate faction. You know, if you remember Charlottesville, them coming out of the forest, cornfields, Jews will not replace us. This is something that is an undercurrent that hasn't been really addressed or spoken about. That I have this internal feeling that there might be something that has to do with a cleansing and
kind of like when the Serbians who were Muslim got attacked by the Catholic Croatians. It was called ethnic cleansing.
Well, kind of like how the Nazis killed the Jews. Okay, let's get down to it.
So we haven't heard anything from those people, though, from
There's
what you were saying.
There's only
about
1% Jews.
I'm saying this is something that I feel in my gut that there might be some kind of a.
Would you bring a surface 8 years later?
Yeah,
Here's the problem, you guys. California there's over 300 ethnic groups there. The Jews are congregated in the Fairfax and Beverly Hills and the Bel Air district. There's probably only one Jew in the Palisades for every 50 houses. But they had a temple there. They had a temple there.
Yeah, of course, that means more than one Jew every 5. Billy Crystal's a Jew. My God, his house was God. We've got all kinds of Jewish people that live everywhere, especially, and through the Palisades. That's something that I just said. It's something that I have thought about. I've got this feeling that there's a segment that's starting to rear its ugly head, and some people don't think it's ugly, but to the ultimate hate in America, to the gulag.
Well, I think arsonists are random. Like, they arrested somebody over by kind of like the borderline of, it was near Reseda, but it was on the end of Reseda, going near that little city called Winnetka. So the guy was fiddling around with something on the street and starting a fire that was very obvious, and people saw it. The citizens arrested him and tackled him to the curb until the cops came. So that was actually not anything to do with the Palisades fire. It was in the valley. But I really think that if someone's trying to get at the Jews, they can't burn 30,000 acres just to kill a Jew.
No, the guy, you know what, I'm not going to say anything. There's no argument here. But I'm just saying, that's me, Don, who feels in his gut, like right around the scrotum, that there is something.
You do not use words like that on my channel.
Anyway, that feels that there's, that could be a mitigating reason for one or more of these potential arson.
Maybe they just hate rich people.
Potential fits of arson. Well, I mean, tract homes don't help either. There have been a lot of tract homes, a lot of businesses that have been built around Palisades too. I remember when Palisades was just a road one through, and I remember Pacific Palisades Park. I don't know if you remember Suzette, but they used to have a Pacific Palisades Park with just a Ferris wheel park, amusement park, and it was right on the beach. And I remember riding on the roller coaster and the Ferris wheel.
I don't think Suzette ever hung out in LA, buddy.
Well, I'm just saying that there was a park there, and we all stayed in it quite a bit.
So
Pacific Palisades, it's not too far from where the Ferris wheel is right now.
Can I say something, Don?
Yeah, go ahead.
One Sunday around I would say the year 2000, our church went to the Will Rogers State Park, which is it's right down it's right off the Sunset Strip, almost getting to the PCH, and it's just a nice little park. It's a beautiful little park, and that whole thing is burned now.
Yeah, no, that's parking. That's the immediate receptor for the homeless. That's the place that they go for for being received. Taking all the information and having to stay for the night.
So did you guys know that there's a big venue in California where they have backpacks? They have crap loads of water, probably Gatorade and snacks, and I bet you some of those people going there for the supplies are homeless people.
So
I'm just saying there's gonna be the quasi California looters who are gonna are gonna take advantage of people's sympathy.
Well, they're calling in more sheriffs into Palisades for looters. They're saying that it's becoming a big time problem.
I have to tell you guys something. Then I'm going to be quiet for a while. Well, this is funny because a week ago, the fire started exactly a week ago. I didn't know anything about it. John's the one who brought it up on the air. But Suzette, I was going to say something about Trump and now I forgot. But John thinks that, of course, because he's a conspiracy theorist, he thinks portions of Palisades burned down because of the sinful lifestyle. And two of the people's houses that were saved were Christians, including a statue of the Virgin Mary that was untouched in the hills. So, do you guys agree with that?
I agree. I can conceivably see if we're talking about, the apocalypse and the four horsemen. I can definitely, and we know here in California and Nevada, we know fire. Fire, can be our enemy, but it can be our friend. And so we was basically, I think that there could be a modicum of truth about the fire, cities.
Well, I have a few more questions. We've been on the air about 43 minutes. Beyond this, this is like a major disaster. No one's ever seen a city this populous get 30,000 acres destroyed in one shot. So, I have one last transitional question we'll answer, and then we'll end the broadcast in 10 or 15 minutes. How do you guys think Donald Trump's inauguration? How is this fire going to influence what's going on in the country? And what do you guys think the mood of the country is Well, we've been on the air 15 minutes, I just saw, but what do you think the mood around Donald Trump's inauguration is now that that New York court ruled that he's an actual felon with no punishment? And how do you think this natural disaster is going to like influence Trump's immediate agenda and things of that nature?
Well, to the first question, as far as how everything will affect his inauguration, I don't. It's one day, and it's just him swearing in, so I don't think anything is going to affect it. As far as New York and them suspending or not punishing and putting any punishment on for what he was indicted for, but because he still has appeals going, then he technically still is not a convicted felon until all his appeals are exhausted, and if they're rejected, then New York stands as far as convicted felon. But until then, it's still open-ended. The fires, I don't think are as far as it's going to influence the inauguration. Again, it's just the swearing in. So he's got other things to deal with. As president, doesn't matter who it is, him or somebody else. Their job really has little to do with domestic affairs. It's mostly, abroad, outside. And there are some things, but for the most part, president has nothing to do with domestic affairs. So I don't know.
So do you think the Clintons, the Obamas, the Bidens, the Bushes, and Al Gore, any of those people will be at the inauguration?
Probably not, and I don't really think it matters, to tell you the truth. I mean, they go out of courtesy, for each other, but I don't think it matters, really.
I think the Clintons have been, since Bill, left office, they've been to every single one, no matter what. And I think I think the Obamas have too.
If Bill Obama said she wouldn't attend, so that's fine.
I think the Clintons and I think that Bush is going to be there, even though they can't stand him. I'm not sure who that list is, but yeah.
Kamala Harris did not invite JD Vance to have a courtesy tour of the vice presidential property.
Yeah, well, like Suzette said, there's nothing that's going to happen, but don't rule anything out. The year started off like more or less no other, where that guy ran through New Orleans, and then having some of these.
You mean the terrorist attack?
Well, if they want to call it that, they can call it that. But there have been things happening that have been a little strange, and if that's an open for the rest of the year, if there's some, he's already had his life threatened, and he's been shot at. I wouldn't take anything for granted at the before or after or at the inaugural.
Some people say since Trump was convicted that he can't fly to other countries because he's a felon.
Yeah, well, that's funny.
Well, I think it's up to the country if they want to have him.
No, it's up to doggone. Well, I mean, they're not going to not have him, okay?
No, what I'm saying in the future, if he has to make a diplomatic visit somewhere, it doesn't necessarily have to be Europe.
Well, again, he hasn't been convicted as a felon yet because he has appeals that are open. Only after those appeals have been rejected will he stand and be in record as a convicted felon. And so that's where that stands as far as his status goes. So technically,
I'm
right
not
now,
trying to
he's not
condemn the guy. I'm just repeating the news.
Yeah, well, so the judge even said, as far as when he had, presumed sentence over Trump, and the punishment aside, and we expect an appeal, and blah blah blah. So as far as that goes, he's technically not a convicted felon until he exhausts his appeals or wins his appeals. Who knows?
You always have a professional way of defending him.
Well, because it's the truth. You can look it up. It could be anybody. Because that's actually the professional definition of an appeal and conviction. That's how it goes. I mean, anybody can look that up. It could be.
I'm not necessarily going to fire Donald Trump in The Apprentice, but I'm going to fire the Supreme Court for being negligent.
I don't even know what you just said.
No, I'm mad at the Supreme Court to giving clemency to any president who commits a crime while in office or potentially commits a crime or conspires to commit a crime.
Yeah, well, most of the presidents have resigned, or that who have done that. That's few and far between.
Well, so do you guys have any final thoughts just for your own mind and your own things that are burdening you as far as the national news or something?
The national what?
Do you have anything on your mind that's been come out in the news in the last 5 to 6 days?
Oh, just the debacle, I don't know what you want to say. They're not incompetent. They're actually very smart because they're getting things accomplished by appearing incompetent here in California, and it's very frustrating. And
you mean they're attempting to do things that cover up their negligence?
No, because a lot of it is blatant, and then they just play stupid. Wanting to have an investigation as to why there was no water pressure or water in that reservoir that should be used for that reason. And we already know, because they already said that it was being worked on. It was inoperable, so that's why there was no water in it.
There were hydrants that weren't working.
Right, and that's because that reservoir
It's because they didn't have the water they didn't fill up the hydrants.
Yes.
Okay, I have some. Oh, shit. Tonight I'm having problems remembering things. Go ahead, Suzette.
Oh, that's why I was saying that particular reservoir for the Yanez reservoir that was for that region where the fires were happening, didn't have the water because it was inoperable. So
that's so pathetic. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's what happened. Anyway, back to you, Jane.
I was gonna ask one more poignant question, but now I can't remember it. Too bad. And also, when I'm on this channel on my LAN computer, I cannot switch screens because the minute I switch screens, then your guys' voices cut off. So I know Suzette's capable of looking back on my channel, but Suzette, you'll be impressed tonight because the last 25 minutes of the show or 30 minutes, I've had this map of California reservoirs up, and my face is in the little corner, so you don't have to see my mug.
Oh God.
No, I don't like having my face on the screen the whole time. So I think the next time I think I'm gonna have a world geology map or something, or a picture of Trump taking office or something else. So I don't have to be I won't have to be front and center. So Don, what's to yesterday in Minnesota, it was -9 and -29 wind chilled, and today the high was 1, but tomorrow it's going to be 29 degrees. What's the weather like in Reno?
Well, right now it's about 40 degrees, balmy 40. It's going to be getting down to 28. but we don't have any snow on the ground here. Tahoe has about 2-3 feet of snow, and so it's good. It's doing pretty well. All the ski runs are going good. So we're in a bit of a Goldilocks where everything looks to remain about 45 to 50 degrees for the remainder of the week. And I'll be heading out by our 27th annual Martin Luther King Jr. caravan that I've headed for the last 9 years. But
That's on the same day as the inauguration.
And it's going to be a clusterfuck because we're going to have extra vigilance and security for us because we don't know what's going to happen that day. And that's why I mentioned that anything can happen, or when I mentioned earlier what is going on. But we are going to have our memorial that's Sunday. And we do it every year. It's we're one of the longest running in the country.
I know about that. Yes.
Yeah, our memorial service is Sunday night. Our caravan is Monday morning, right before inauguration, and then our actually it might be even during the inauguration, and then that night is our banquet, as the banquet. So we have the weather's going to be great then, and we're going to have a lot of participants. We just stay in our cars and drive down highway, Martin Luther King Highway. So that's something we do every year.
Yeah, you have a caravan. So
Be a busy man that day.
I think there's.
Busy, but
I'm the busiest person you'll ever meet.
I have a
so.
Good job, Don. I have a prediction. Something is going to go wrong at the inauguration, either with the protesters or just the general public there. I have a hunch something's going wrong.
And that's what I'm saying. There were so many possibilities, but I think with Suzette, I think that it's going to go smoothly, but who knows what happens around it or any earlier or later.
Okay, Janessa is ending the show because I have to go to the bathroom.
All right, Janessa. Yeah, just flush, please.
Yes, Father dear.
Alrighty,
Okay.
guys. Good night, Don.
See you guys. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.